Before the wolf, before the yachts, before the FBI files stacked like phone books, there was just a kid from Queens with a mouth full of dreams and pockets full of nothing. Bayside, Queens, 1960s. A neighborhood where success meant a steady job, a two-bedroom house, and maybe a vacation if the union approved your days off. But Jordan Belfort wasn't built for average. He wasn't built for ceilings. He wasn't even built for rules. One summer afternoon, a skinny kid stands on a corner with a styrofoam cooler. Lemon ice. 2 for 1. Best in Queens. Tell your friends. He's 12. He looks 12. But he talks like he's been closing deals since birth. By the end of the summer, the kid rakes in 20 grand. $20,000. Not from stocks. Not from scams. From frozen lemon ices. Most kids would have bought a stereo or a bike. Jordan? He tried dental school. First day, the dean walks on stage, gray suit, thick glasses, and says, "If you're here to get rich, you're in the wrong profession." Jordan stood up, smiled, walked out. He didn't need a degree. He didn't need a plan. And if that path didn't exist, he'd build one himself. This is where the myth begins. Not with fraud, not with Wall Street, but with a kid who realized something terrifyingly powerful. He could sell anything. When Jordan Belfort walked into LF Rothschild for the first time, he wasn't a stockbroker. He wasn't even close. He was a broke 20-something with a cheap suit, a borrowed tie, and a hunger that the senior brokers could smell on him. But Wall Street in the late 80s didn't care about resumes. It cared about 3 things: ambition, aggression, and the ability to keep dialing. And Jordan had all 3. He started at the bottom, literally, cold calling leads for the real brokers. 8 hours a day, script after script, name after name, until his voice cracked and his fingertips were numb. But he listened. He learned. He soaked up every phrase, every tactic, every psychological trick. He watched brokers close 6-figure deals between bumps of cocaine. He saw fortunes made before lunch and lost before sunset. And in that chaos, Jordan found his home. He wasn't intimidated by the pressure. He was energized by it. He mimicked the cadence of top salesmen, the confidence of veterans, the swagger of the guys who strutted around like they owned the floor. Within months, he could sell the dream better than most. He was ready to rise. Then, Black Monday hit. October 19th, 1987. The biggest one-day crash in Wall Street history. Phones went dead. Screens flashed red. Brokers who had bragged about being untouchable now sat frozen, pale, silent. And Jordan, the hungry rookie, was fired. No cushion, no savings. Just a pink slip and a brutal reminder. Wall Street didn't care who you were. Only what you could make, right now. But to Jordan, the crash wasn't an ending. It was an opening. Because while he was packing up his desk, he heard a whisper about a corner of the market no one respectable wanted to touch: penny stocks. Cheap, obscure, unregulated. Garbage, according to the pros. But there was one detail no one could ignore. 50% commissions. Not 5, not 10, 50. Sell $1,000 worth of stock. And 500 went directly into the broker's pocket. Jordan didn't see dirt. He saw gold. So he walked into a tiny, sketchy brokerage on Long Island, sat down at a wobbly desk, picked up a phone, and made a call that changed his life. "Sir, listen to me carefully. This company is small now. Yes, but the upside is enormous." He didn't know the company. He didn't know the product. But he knew how to sell. And in less than 5 minutes, he closed $4,000. One call, one pitch, one realization. He'd found the playground where the rules didn't apply. He didn't need Wall Street's permission anymore. He would build his own. The office Jordan walked into wasn't Wall Street. It wasn't even close. It was a cramped, yellow-lit storefront with rattling air vents, sticky floors, and a sales team that looked more like they belonged in a bowling alley league than a brokerage. But Jordan didn't see misfits. He saw potential, raw, unshaped, hungry. Guys who didn't know a balance sheet from a grocery receipt, but who needed a win. Guys who'd follow a leader who could show them how to grab one. And Jordan was ready to become that leader. He didn't just sell stocks, that he sold certainty. He injected belief into people who'd never believed in anything, and they listened. Then Danny Porish walked in. Barely sober, always talking, always hustling. The kind of guy you'd never trust with your car keys. But somehow you'd trust with your future. Jordan saw a mirror. Danny saw a meal ticket. Together, they were combustible. And from that chaos, they built Stratton Oakmont. A name that sounded like old money, mahogany desks, and legacy. But behind the fancy letterhead, just a converted strip mall boiler room, with mismatched furniture and a dream big enough to drown out the truth. Jordan hired anyone who could talk fast and want faster. Bartenders, weed dealers, car salesmen, beach bums, it didn't matter. He didn't want pedigree. He wanted killers. Then came the training. Jordan crafted his weapon, straight-line persuasion. A psychological chokehold designed to drag someone from hello to where do I wire the money. In one smooth, unbroken motion, he drilled rookies until their voices cracked, until hesitation was erased, until they became machines. And soon, the room changed. Phones rang nonstop. Scripts were shouted like battle cries. Every successful close erupted into screams, applause, and sometimes chairs being thrown across the room. It wasn't a brokerage. It was a cult of momentum. And Jordan sat at the center of it all, a conductor orchestrating chaos, watching the numbers rise and rise and rise. Stratton targeted people Wall Street ignored. The hopeful, the uncertain, the working class saver trying to get ahead just once in their lives. Jordan didn't sell stocks. He sold escape. The dream of getting in early, of beating the market, of finally catching a break. And when the money started pouring in, Jordan made it rain harder, more calls, more hype, more pressure, until a handful of penny stocks turned into full-blown IPOs. And Stratton Oakmont transformed from a noisy strip mall office into a roaring cash factory. Jordan didn't just climb the ladder. He set it on fire and built his own out of smoke. He wasn't just a salesman anymore. He was the wolf. By the early 90s, Stratton Oakmont wasn't just successful, it was out of control. The money came in faster than they could count it. The brokers screamed louder than they could think. And Jordan was living like the rules didn't apply to him. Because for a while they didn't. Stratton's formula was simple: buy millions of cheap shares. Hype them like the second coming of Microsoft. Sell everything at the top. Leave the investors holding the ashes. A pump and dump. On paper, fraudulent. At Stratton Oakmont, it was called Tuesday. And the culture? If you walked into the office, you'd think you were crashing the world's most chaotic bachelor party. Cocaine on desks. Champagne spilling onto keyboards. Air horns. Cash showers. Strippers in conference rooms. Quaaludes passed around like breath mints. It wasn't a company. It was a circus. And Jordan was the ringmaster. He bought mansions, helicopters, Ferraris. He sailed a superyacht named after his wife Naomi. He threw parties that made Vegas look like a church retreat. And every broker wanted to be him. Success wasn't a goal. It was a religion. And Jordan was the prophet. But while everyone else worshipped, the foundation was beginning to rot. Stocks they pushed were collapsing. Investors were complaining. Former employees were starting to talk, and none of it was good. The SEC noticed. Then the NASD. Then the FBI. And Jordan? He didn't slow down. He sped up. More drugs. More secrets. More offshore accounts. Shell companies in the Caribbean. Swiss banks under fake names. Cash couriers smuggling envelopes across borders. One was literally the family housekeeper with money sewn into her bra. Jordan called it asset protection. The FBI called it laundering. Inside the office, the chaos was turning ugly. Brokers overdosing during calls. Fights breaking out over commissions. People passing out at their desks. Some were headed toward breakdowns, others toward prison. And Jordan himself? He was unraveling. His marriage was collapsing. His drug use was skyrocketing. He crashed cars, wrecked relationships, and in one notorious moment, he tried to sail his yacht through a Mediterranean storm because he was too high to believe nature had rules. The Italian Navy had to rescue him. The yacht sank. And even that didn't stop him. Back home, the walls were closing in. Reporters sniffed around. The SEC filed more complaints. And worst of all, FBI agent Gregory Coleman had begun piecing together the entire empire. Brick by fraudulent brick. Jordan didn't know it yet, but the chase had already started. And it was only a matter of time before the wolf finally ran out of places to hide. By 1996, the wolf's empire was held together with duct tape, denial, and a whole lot of offshore money. But the FBI wasn't guessing anymore. They were watching. Gregory Coleman had recordings, wire transfers, suspicious accounts, a map of Jordan's entire operation. Stratton Oakmont wasn't a mystery to him. It was a crime scene waiting for handcuffs. Then came October 1996. Just after sunrise, federal agents stormed the office. Doors kicked open. Hard drives seized. Files boxed up. Brokers frozen mid, cold call, like deer in headlights. Someone tried to flush documents down a toilet. Someone else attempted to walk out with a briefcase full of shredded forms. It was chaos, but it didn't matter. The FBI had everything they needed. Jordan tried to play it off, insisting to his employees it was all a misunderstanding. But he knew better. Deep down, he knew the empire he built wasn't collapsing. It had already collapsed. Still, in the middle of an active federal investigation, Jordan did the stupidest thing possible. He wired $2 million to Switzerland. The call was recorded. The transfer was traced. And the moment he hit send, his freedom was gone. By 1998, Jordan Belfort had run out of tricks. The feds had his accounts. They had his tapes. They had his people. His inner circle turned on him, not out of morality, but survival. Some wore wires. Some surrendered folders. Some walked into FBI offices praying to shave 5 years off their sentence. Stratton Oakmont was dead. Now it was Jordan's turn. He faced up to 30 years for fraud, money laundering, and securities violations. So Jordan did what Jordan did best. He sold. Not stocks. Not hype. Information. He flipped. He cooperated. He handed over colleagues, partners, friends, the same people who once cheered his name in the boiler room. More than 30 Stratton employees were indicted. Some served more time than he ever would. And the Wolf of Wall Street. He was sentenced to 22 months. In a minimum security prison. No bars. No guns. No fences. He played tennis. Lifted weights. And at night, he wrote. That's where he met Tommy Chong, the stoner comedian serving time for selling bongs online. Jordan told him everything. The drugs, the scams, the money smuggled in bras, the yacht incident, the insanity. Tommy wasn't shocked. He laughed. You gotta write this down, man. So Jordan did. He turned his downfall into a manuscript into a memoir into a movie deal. In 2007, The Wolf of Wall Street hit shelves, a book less about remorse and more about the thrill of the ride. Then Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio picked it up. And in 2013, the world watched Jordan Belfort's crimes played as entertainment. The same man who lied to investors was now inspiring them. The victims lost their savings. Jordan gained fans. He still owes over $100 million in restitution. Most victims have seen only a fraction. But today, he's a motivational speaker, a business coach, a podcast host, a personal brand built on the ruins of the lives he destroyed. He didn't just survive the fall. He monetized it. And the wildest part? People still cheer for him. Because deep down, Jordan was right about one thing. He wasn't just selling stocks or dreams or hype. He was selling the fantasy of getting away with it. And in a way, he did.